day 6 of How to Grow Your Donor Base in 20 Days. We are on the front porch of Funding for Good, and my name is Mandy. I'm the owner of Funding for Good for those of you who I haven't met or who are joining us for the first time. We decided after lots and lots of requests on how to find new donors, how to increase the donor base, how to keep donors that you have, that we would put together a 20-day series on things you can do right now in 20 days that will increase the donors that you keep, will increase the donors that you find that are actually a good match for your organization, and simple strategies that will help you do those things now. Day 6, we're going to talk about low-hanging fruit. One of the very first things that is great and easy to do, whether you are a new director of development, whether you're an executive director that's wearing lots of hats in development and donor relations as part of your job, whether you're working on a board, whether you're a consultant that's working with another organization and you're trying to help them create strategies, whether you're tenured and you've been doing this for a really long time and you just need some fresh ideas. A lot of these are things I implemented when I was a development director that I found to be very successful, that I have learned from other consultants and organizations that have been doing donor acquisition and donor retention work for a very long time. But one of the easiest things to do is to identify your low-hanging fruit and go after them. There are 3 really simple target lists for you to think about. One are your LYBUNTS, people that gave last year but haven't yet given this year, or people that are getting ready to be added to your LYBUNT list. So they're getting ready to have expired, they haven't given in 365 days. Part of that is knowing how to run those reports in your, whether you're using donor software, or whether you're looking at Excel, whether you're working with an accountant, however you run your reports, but looking at who has not given in almost a year or who has already expired. It's been more than 365 days since they've given to you. Those are your LYBUNTS. Last year but not this, LYBUNT. The second group that's pretty easy to look at are your SYBUNTS. Some year but not this. So these may be people who gave 2 years ago but nobody has re-engaged them. Somehow they dropped off of your radar and no one picked them back up. One time I was taking on the development director role at an association, and there hadn't been anyone in my position in 10 months. The person that was previously in my position was still at the organization but in a different role. So there were a lot of invoices that hadn't been caught up, people who hadn't been reminded they need to make payments, people who hadn't been engaged that used to be donors, businesses that had given to a capital campaign but the money had never been collected. There was a lot of stuff that needed to be caught back up once I started. And these are the first 2 places where I started. I looked at all the LYBUNTS and I got those cleaned up. I ran reports, I made phone calls, I made thank you letters, I went and visited people, I tried to get folks re-engaged. That is an important part of your job as a development person or an executive director, regardless of if you're trying to get new donors. You should be engaging the people who have given to you in the past. So that should be something that you're doing on an ongoing basis, no matter what your goal is. The next thing is the SYBUNTS. That takes a little longer because depending on how large your database is and how far back it goes, you may or may not have access to a lot of information. Now, if you have access to a lot of information, it might be a whole lot of information. You might say, oh my gosh, we have 15 years worth of information. How far should I go back? My theory on that is start with LYBUNTS and then take it a year at a time as you have time, because this isn't the only thing you're going to be doing in your job. You have other responsibilities. So I'm not going to say run a report for the past 15 years and contact all those people. Take it 1 year at a time and go 2 years back. As you have time, work through that list depending on how big it is. Then run the report that's 3 years back, work through that list. And as you have time, hopefully you're learning new ways to add donors and to build donor relations, and you probably won't have to go back terribly far into your SYBUNT list. The third group of people that should be fairly easy for you to re-engage are past board members. There's several things you need to do before you start reaching out to those folks. One, does your donor database have a way for you to pull a report of past board members? And Leo's probably going to bark because there's a person going up the street real slow. Okay, maybe not. So if you don't have a way to pull up in your database previous board members, which some people do and some people don't. Like I know, for example, Bloomerang has a way for you to identify people when you put them in as a volunteer or a board member or whatever those roles are, so it's easier to run that report. The next thing I would do is just go to the people in your office. If you have an HR director, if you have someone that's responsible for taking the minutes at your board meetings, whoever sends out the notices for reminders of board meetings. They probably have the list of all of your previous boards of directors. And this might be a little more work, but take that list, look at it in the donor base, say, is this person still giving or not? Create yourself a list of people who have lapsed that used to be board members. Those people are great to reach out to just to educate yourself on the organization. Could I meet with you for coffee? I'd love to get some background on the organization, how you became involved, etc., etc. That leads up to, so I noticed you haven't given in 2 years, and I was wondering if you could tell me why, why you've dropped off as a donor, or is there a way we can get you re-engaged, or would you like to be a part of blah, 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 whatever. Lots of different ways to have those conversations. But if they were willing at some point to serve on the board, if they were onboarded in the right way, and it wasn't just, hey, will you fill a seat because we have an empty, board position and we just need somebody to be a warm body at a meeting. If they were on there because they were passionate about the organization, because they had some vested interest, they were a really warm prospect to get back on if they have dropped as a donor. So that's where I would start. The very next step that I would do after that would be looking at businesses that have been donors in the past or have been engaged with you in some way, depending on, again, how you keep your donor base, will depend on how easy it is to pull those folks out, and get them re-engaged, whether it was as a business sponsor or as an annual sponsor, a corporate sponsor, someone that participated in an event, however they were previously engaging. Find out why that stopped. Was it just because they weren't asked anymore? Was it because some other organization became a priority? Was it because they used to have a employee that worked there that worked for your organization, so you were a priority then but now you're not? Find out what those reasons are. So that is the low-hanging fruit that I would encourage you to look at. The reports, depending on your donor base, shouldn't take that long to run, a couple of days to get all that data together. And then the time-consuming part will be reaching out to them, figuring out the best way to re-engage them, and getting to work on that. So I hope that was helpful today. This was day 6, and we will be talking tomorrow about day 7. Please feel free to leave comments in the comment section below, share the video, subscribe to our page, and join our online community, and we will see you again soon.